we need to reframe our idea of violence
Mhm.
comes to food. Systemic policy violence. How is
Mhm.
it that we think it is not violent to have somebody not have access? There's kids who are going to rely on the food that they are sent home from leftover lunch today to last them until Monday, which is wildly violent and horrific
Yeah,
and terroristic
yeah,
to families already. And then to think next week they may not even have access to that
yeah.
because the school may not have access.
Welcome to Right There With You, where we lean into life's biggest questions, challenge what we think we know, and discover the strength we've had all along.
This is my friend and co host, Ciarra Jones, theologian and lifelong explorer of faith, identity, and purpose.
And say hello to my co-host and buddy Cass Cooper, a professional chaos whisperer who loves untangling the complexities of human relationships.
Here we embrace the journey, no matter how uncertainty or transformative it gets.
And no matter where you are on yours, we're right there with you.
Hey there, hey, welcome to the pod.
What's going on, y'all? What's going on, Kat? My girl Cass was just in Spain.
I
So what do you,
was.
tell the people about that?
Oh my gosh, first of all, I'm still tired. I'm very grateful I did not get sick because last time I traveled for work, I got violently ill with the vid. Um, and it was a really great experience. I think that it taught me a lot about preparation and how you need to do the preparation and the work leading up to it. But then once you get there, just trust that you've already done the work. I think
Mhm.
sometimes people who look very put together on stage, you underestimate how much preparation has gone into those moments. And I was very, I moderated a panel on women and work. And I knew based off of the prep call that we had that there was two women who were brilliant, right? But they are talkers. And I knew, I was like, listen, we have some very specific questions that the person who is paying us to be here wants us to get to. And so I knew that if I didn't kind of steer the conversation and wasn't prepared for steering that conversation, we weren't going to get to them because one of them has a lot to say and then the other one has a lot to say and talks slow. So I was like, we gotta, we only got 35 minutes, sisters. You're brilliant and amazing and very accomplished, but we only got 35 minutes. We got to get through these 15 questions that the audience is here to hear. So it was great. I
But
would
how
say
do you relate to preparation? 'Cause you tell me that too, like, right? Like, to trust yourself and, like, what's that bridge there?
I think that, in the last, hours leading up, okay, am I ready? I'm making notes on my little note cards that I had. But then once I got on stage, I was like, I already know what I'm going to say, you know, and trusting that the courses I've taken on media and being on stage, being able to clearly communicate all of that work that I put into it, it pays off and it's already locked into my head. So I don't have to think so much about that stuff and I can really truly be present because of the preparation that I have.
Mm, I love
I
that.
also think my background as an event planner helps a lot because I know what event planners want to see and what can be taken off of their plate to
Mm,
make it easier. For instance, I know how I like to be mic'd. You don't have to do that. I
mm,
know that it's important for speakers to have water on stage. I know that the order that they call us to sit on stage is and the order that it is on the jumbotron or wherever we are, that is the opposite order we need to walk out. Like little tiny things that just make it easier for the event planner, I can do. So it makes me more prepared. It just makes everybody more ease. Because some people, they're really great when you're talking to them one on one. But then when they get on stage, they like freeze. And I'm like, listen, sister, I'm here to make sure you look good. I'm not gonna ask you any gotcha questions. You you just you just vibe. And if you get stuck, then I'm gonna pull you out of it, right? And just being prepared for that, right? Like T.I. says, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
I love that, and I think that people forget too, like, preparation happens o one, I really relate to this because I do a lot of keynote speaking, a lot of workshops, as Cass does, and I had a keynote talk this week, and I was so nervous, and I practice pretty much every keynote talk with my mother and with my partner, so I was practicing a ton this weekend with Azriel, and something that she, like, reminds me is, like, this preparation also has happened over years, like, you've been talking about the same thing for years, lives in your body for years, and she actually reminded me of, like, the Bible verse that, like, talks about, like, when you speak, like, trust that, like, God will also guide what you have to say, and I think no matter where you are, if you're spiritual, if you're agnostic or atheist, I do think that, like, whenever I have my best talks, I'm, like, connecting to source, whatever that source looks like for you. And so I think, like, also remembering the deeper why and the purpose because I think, Maya Angelou said, like, people will not don't really remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel, and it's true. I mean, over the course of my life, I've heard so many lectures and so many talks, and one that sticks with me all the time is Laverne Cox. She's one of the best speakers I ever heard, and I couldn't even tell you what she said, but I can tell you how I felt in that environment, what she brought forward, and so I think also, like, reminding like, even if you're feeling nervous, being enthusiastic, connecting to others, turning the audience back to themselves is huge, like, I work, with 2 amazing leaders in my organization, and we do a lot of co-facilitating together, and one thing they've taught me actually is to pare down my curriculum and just ask people questions. They were like, "Girl, the more you ask people questions, the audience questions, and you let them answer and reflect back to them what you're hearing them say, the better people feel too." Like, I think reminding myself as a speaker, my job is not to be the smartest in the room, but to be the bridge in the room, and if you can do that.
100%, and that's why at the end of my workshops, I don't end with Q&A. I always end with QUID, question, inquiry, and discovery, because I don't have all the answers. We might not even get to the answer in this room, but we're gonna discover something new. We're gonna inquire about what we learned and question, how we got here, and I think I will say I love what you said about it's about making people feel good, but
Mhm,
it's also I would say sometimes you're not even sure what how do I say this? The thing that you want people to walk away with may not be the thing that resonates with them. And I think being okay with that is part of what makes you a good workshop facilitator or keynote speaker. Because you never know what people are bringing into the room. And yeah, you've got your key points and your questions and your bullet points and all of that. But sometimes the thing that you say that's off script is
mhm,
the thing that resonates the loudest. And then you see it in the comments and you're like, I didn't even remember saying that.
mm.
You know what I mean? And so I'm like, "Okay, that's good." Also, your girl got out of all the things, we were the 4th highest rated of all the conference, and I was like and we were the only piece of content that was specifically focused on gender, which I was really
What do you think what part of your talk and then we're gonna jump into the topic of today, which relates
yeah.
and doesn't relate to this, but what do you think when did you feel most connected in your talk? Like, what was the part of it that felt most connected to your audience when you were like, "Yes," you know?
I think I always love when I get a good laugh
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I feel like it brings, like, just some humanity into the room and just a little bit of
Yes.
joy. And we were coming to the end, and one of the panelists, she was like, "Yeah, we could just talk forever." I was like, "No, we're holding these people up from lunch." You know what I mean? And it just, like, brought in so I feel like yeah, I was like, "I don't know about y'all, but I gotta eat."
Yes.
I think there was that. I think also, I felt very like, I was just really honored that they asked me, you know? I think they coulda literally asked anybody in the world. It was a global conference on cybersecurity. They coulda asked any of the women on the panel to be the facilitator, but, I just was really excited that I had the opportunity to say yes because they offered.
Yeah,
And I think part of what I'm learning, and I wonder if you actually experience this, is actually, you told me this months ago. I
yeah.
don't know if you remember.
How I forget? What is
You said, "Good work rises, and just keep doing good work."
That's
And I
true.
was like,
It does, girl, like, it really does. I mean, even my social media teaches me that, like, I think about this all the time, but, like, I always say, like, I found my literary agent when I had, like, 8,000 followers, it wasn't viral work, and even now to this day, the most popular work I do and the least viewed content I have is the same, which is gardening work, is the least viewed content, the most popular work, in a world of virality, we have forgotten the power of connection and forgotten that, like, people will still be drawn to the authenticity. Like, viral moments pass, but if you are putting out consistently good work, you will find the community and the connection. So many people who have smaller followings are getting paid. They're getting paid because they're making work that connects, that is, just really, really great work. So I just think it can be so easy. I want our whole audience to hear this. It can be so easy to think your work is being visibilized, but it's not. It is getting to the right people who can make it rise even higher. And so I think, like, I never want someone to get fatigued from doing great work, especially when oftentimes bad work is viral or antagonistic work is viral because it is inflammatory, but it doesn't mean it has
Mhm.
staying power. So I just said that to say, like, if you were that person making art and putting it online and one person's liking it or whatever else it is, like, good work does rise. So please keep doing your work and keep trusting your work. And I think
Yeah,
incredible work, Cass, and you are such a testament to good work rises, you know?
thank you.
Yes, yes, it's
So
worth
that brings us to our topic for today, which is I wanna say corporate terrorism, but I don't wanna say that.
just like good work rises, bad work terrorizes all of us. So let's talk about
Well, that's actually good. Put that good work rises, but corporate terrorists.
corporate organizations terrorize us. And you know who else is terrorizing us right now? Christian nationalists. Cass and I have been talking a lot about what is happening right now on the government shutdown. We've been talking a bit
Mm,
camera about what is happening as we have one of our largest hunger crisis in our nation's history. As SNAP benefits go away in just a day, I think November is when SNAP
yeah,
benefits go away.
like, I mean, we're recording this on Halloween, so tomorrow, if they don't come up with a in just hours, if they don't
Yeah,
come up with some sort of solution to at least extend SNAP benefits, not to mention folks who have been affected by job loss because of this or economic
what?
loss because of the shutdown, but just even the SNAP benefits. And
Yeah.
I just one creator that I saw this week that really just hit home is that we need to reframe our idea of violence
Mhm.
comes to food.
Violence. Yeah.
Like systemic policy violence. How is
Mhm.
it that we think it is not violent to have somebody not have access? Like there's kids who are going to rely on the food that they are sent home from leftover lunch today to last them until Monday, which is wildly violent and horrific
Yeah.
and terroristic
Yeah.
to families already. And then to think next week they may not even have access to that because
Yeah.
the school may not have access. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy to me.
Absolutely, and I think there's, like I think I wanna zoom out with you and
Yeah.
see so I think we're just to zoom out a bit. So, we have Trump elected, and we have this Project 2025 policy practice, or I guess policy framework, where we see the upping of ICE arrests, where we see the gutting of our job market, and then now we see these SNAP benefits being taken away, and I just been thinking and I made a video this week about how you know, while we're seeing this happen, we're seeing like a deepening of Christian nationalist theological practices. Something I talked about was how we recently had all this fervor around the rapture. And although I do want to name black and brown Christians are also obsessed with the rapture, I named that I think the rapture is like this white supremacist fantasy of like, we can create systemic chaos, but then God will save us from experiencing it. And I guess I've been trying to tie together like what's happening around ICE, what's happening around SNAP, what's happening in the job market, what's happening in healthcare with all this anti-vaccination rhetoric from RFK Jr., what's happening in the military with P. Hexas and all this anti-inclusion narratives. And I guess my question to you, and maybe something we can talk about is why do Christian nationalist theologies revel in the suffering of others? Why do they have no desire to alleviate or reach into that suffering? And what do you see there? And what do you think as, all this,
I
you know
mean, listen, if I had the answer, I would run for public office and fix it, honestly. Because I don't know. It really is. And I think you hit it on the head, really, with this idea of the white imagination
Mhm.
because so many of us are functioning in our identities because the white imagination existed in the way that it did in specific periods of time, right? Like whiteness is not a thing in and of itself. It is constructed against this imagination of what blackness is, what being Asian is, what like womanhood is a very specific subset of identity because it exists against the idea of what other women are and what this type of woman is not, meaning a white woman. And so we're all subject to this this imagination that people have to uphold, and because they don't understand who they are outside of it. It's Toni Morrison said it really, really well. She was like, "What do you do if you take away being white? Are you
Mhm,
kind? Are you gentle?
mhm.
Are you interesting?"
Mm,
Right? And the answer, quite frankly, for a lot of folks, unfortunately, is probably no.
yeah.
Which is why they come to our space for cultural, like, needs and food needs and, like, sense of belonging and self and all of these things because they whiteness is constructed against something. It's, like, devoid of all the things, and it's only defined. I mean, I have to flip it back to you to make it a connection to Christianity because I don't get it. I honestly, I don't understand because the God that I grew up knowing is not one that is white.
Mm,
That
mhm,
just I was in a very pro black, even though I would say constructually a lot of the things that in our the church I grew up with ended up being like a pro-white existence or aligned with getting us closer to like whiteness with like the politics of respectability and all of that. That being said, it was still a very pro-black space
mm,
politically.
mm,
Well, I don't and I feel like the work that I do when it comes to DEI and equity and inclusion is an extension of my faith,
mm,
not something that is the antithesis. So when you talk about whiteness and the need for Christianity to hold on to it so dearly in such a violent way, I really I'm over here disassociating because I don't get it. I really don't get.
I think you hit the nail on the head on a few things though. I love when you said about white like how white identity becomes a place insulates white people from having to do introspective work because whiteness is always defined as morally righteous. And so
Yes,
because white people have this identity that is already defined as better than marginalized communities, there's a lack of interrogation of how the self actually behaves or how the community behaves collectively within practice. It makes me think a bit about something that I love a text. I'm Ty Allison. Everything you said was brilliant. Okay, so you don't even need my voice because what you said was brilliant, which is why I asked you the question. Okay, but
but
turning
no, I need you to connect it to the Christianity of it all because I just do not truthfully, honestly, and this is part of the reason why I had to leave the church, girl, because I was like, "What are we doing?
yeah, the
What is
question,
happening?"
what are we doing is a solid question, and I think a few things. So number one, as I mentioned, like Cheryl Harris has a amazing text. Cheryl Harris, the lawyer, very, very famous text called Whiteness as Property. And in that she says like whiteness is protected property through law. Right. So like when we think about the 1/16th drop rule, this idea that if you're 1/16th black, you're not white, it's because we are protecting the definition of whiteness through law. When we say, when we have redlining in housing and we say you can't live in this neighborhood or we have white flight, we're protecting the idea of whiteness through law by saying white people get to live in safe neighborhoods. White people get to be insulated from harm and criminality. And so we define and protect whiteness through law and through practice. When we have occupational segregation where only white folks can get certain roles within leadership positions or corporate spaces, we insulate white economic power. And so I think we already have this practice, even taking religion out of it. We protect whiteness through law and policy and practice. But then I think whiteness isn't only property as in law, I think it's also properties around spirituality. So, if we think about the founding of the US, it was founded under the guise of whiteness being protected spiritual property. It was the idea that white bodies are divine, so they shouldn't experience the ire and the trauma of slavery. Black bodies should, because black bodies aren't divine. They are cursed. And so I think there's like this one idea we get from Cheryl Harris, which is whiteness is protected property. But then I think through what Christian nationalism, we put them together, it becomes whiteness is protected spiritual property. So not only does white supremacy exist, just the idea that whiteness is better. I think with the religion, we get this idea of whiteness isn't just better because whiteness says it is, it's because God says it is. And then we're able to really imbue whiteness with all these rights that other people don't get or shouldn't get. So I think what this does in the white psyche, especially white Christian nationalist psyche, is as people are suffering and not getting their SNAP benefits, they're able to bring it back or getting arrested by ICE or getting laid off. they're able to say, well, my communities aren't under siege because we're closer to God and we're better. So if you had done your work as a community and worked harder, pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, and also done the work to have God favor you, then you wouldn't suffer when SNAP benefits are taken away. I think they create this reality where if you are good enough, then God will insulate you from the trauma of systemic inequality. And I think they believe they're insulated because they're better without saying, actually, who set that system up? You. It's not God.
Well,
You are God in this scenario, you know?
who sets the system up so that only a specific subset of whiteness has access to that type of godly
Yes,
behavior, right?
exactly.
And I
Because
use
poor white folks are harmed
are
too.
disproportionately being impacted. And that to me is again brings it. See, I'm about to get mad.
But then
That again brings it back to me of what is happening.
yeah.
Because when you look statistically, what is it? I think percent or 60 or 65% of the people who are on SNAP benefits are non people of color.
Mm,
And so when you look at it, even like the
mm,
actual harm that is being had, it's to your own people.
yeah.
And so like, but you have created this ideology and this
Mm,
image in your mind of this like welfare mom from the fucking 90s that is so outdate with what is actually happening. So it's like we can't even present these people with true information and true data because you're so wrapped up in I am already good
mhm,
and everybody else who is in this place is bad and therefore they deserve what badness I actually am imparting on them.
mhm. No, absolutely. I was trying to Google while you're talking because everything you're saying was brilliant. What percentage of white SNAP beneficiaries voted for Trump? And I couldn't quite figure it out, but I know that he did get a lot of the poor white vote. And something I think about a lot around the time of MLK's assassination was he was really advocating for Black working class and poor working class people to build coalitions of solidarity. And I think that that was very threatening to US government, which is one reason he was assassinated. But I also name that to say, I think for poor white voters, whiteness becomes such a barrier for them also voting in ways that alleviate the suffering of their communities. I think the Republican Party totes this promise of like all white people can come into the fold of rich whiteness if you are in alignment with us. But actually, which I think poor white folks become also a pawn to uphold the wealth of the wealthy white 1% while they continue to get stomped on by the wealthy white 1%. And so I think also just this whiteness becomes such uh, what's the word I don't even know, like, just a trap for white folks themselves, where I feel like they're so caught up in whiteness as property. They're so caught up in protecting the little corner of white identity that they're not seeing that your own adherence to this identity is violence to yourself as well. Like, I think that's the sickness of white supremacy, you know? You
But
become
don't you think it also
it's
it
yourself.
it goes back to what you said at the beginning. Don't you think it goes back to like we think the lack of ability, the inability to have introspection about the definition of who you are, right? Like I
Yeah,
don't have to ever question whiteness because I don't even think that it exists
yeah,
because I just am a human being, an individual.
yes. Yes, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's why Trump's rhetoric around hate the other is so impactful because then white folks still don't have to look at themselves. They can say the economy is failing, but it's this immigrant community's fault. The economy is failing, but it's poor Black community's fault. The economy is failing, but it's this community's fault. And so I do think you're right that the weird the distortion of whiteness, how white supremacy distorts reality is by saying, even as we watch white people produce this violence, they are never accountable for it, and their own communities don't hold them accountable. So there's something there around introspection and white communities' inability to see themselves. I love the text "Souls of White Folks" by W.E. Du Bois. I wish I could find some of the quotes from it. There's some I remember, but then he starts this off by saying like, "High in my ivory tower, I can see the sea and I watch white souls twist and turn and I'm clairvoyant of them." And I love that because I think something that white folks are reticent to ever acknowledge is that like we know them so much better than they know themselves. That Black people have an insight into the white psyche better than they know themselves. And something Du Bois says in that is like, I've witnessed white men denigrate and dehumanize Black little girls for walking on their side of the sidewalk, for coming into their stores. and what has to be happening in the soul. What kind of bitterness or brokenness is happening in your own soul to look at a Black child and not see their humanity? Like, what is happening? And so I think just like we have epigenetics in Black communities, like there's a norm in white communities to never look at the self and always dehumanize the other, and that has to do something to your community
And
over time.
I think that actually ties it back to the Christianity of it all,
Yeah.
because if God is always out there, if God is always outside of myself, outside of my sense of being, my ability to know, my ability to experience, I'm always chasing after it as this like big sky daddy situation, then I never have to internalize what parts of me are godlike or not, because it doesn't exist inside of me. It exists out there far and away. And so when we're thinking through how a level of introspection and connection to the body is necessary in order to experience a specific type of spirituality, not necessarily Christianity, but spirituality, that Christian idea that God is punitive and
Mm,
God is outside of me and I have to prove myself is always going to be reinscribed
mm,
or reinscribing this lack of introspection.
mhm.
As long as I think of it away from me, then I never have to look at my behavior, because
Absolutely.
all of my behavior exists for the benefit of something over there.
Yes. All the time. Yes. 1,000%. The theology insulates any type of introspection. I mean, even I think about this all the time, but like, around the, time of chattel slavery, the fact that you could have a theology that could insulate you from taking any culpability for violently dehumanizing Black bodies. The fact that there was a theology that said Black bodies are cursed and therefore they deserve this humane treatment, and this protected white folks from having to do any introspective work around the violent dehumanization they were enacting on Black people every day shows how profound white theology is at creating delusion, like true collective delusion. And like we all are suffering under that delusional theology right now as people are losing their SNAP benefits. And we see white ministers talking about, I don't know, still praying away the gay and focusing on celibacy and abortion. How,
You're
how,
missing the plot. And what's crazy to me, and goes back to like what I loved, okay, to everybody listening, what prompted this is Ciarra's church in the Bay Area is doing a mutual aid. And it clicked to me. I don't see any of these big, huge mega churches who've been talking so much about anti-trans rights, who've been trying to get, questioning the masculinity of Black women, who are saying I don't see any of them with a line outside the door saying, "Come and get food."
mm,
You know who I do see doing it?
mm,
Just random coffee shops.
mhm,
And, like, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, this is my Venmo, send me $5, whatever, I'm gonna go and buy food for the school up the street because
mm,
these kids aren't gonna have food over the weekend,"
mm,
right? I don't see these mega churches make, and that's the thing that they're not even making the effort. And so when we say that we are supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus,
mm.
how much more pragmatic can you get? You literally need to
Come on
be
now.
the hands that feed people.
Yep.
Like, I just, again, what is the point of reading all these stories and coming up with all these and holding them so true
Mm,
when if rubber meets the road that you are not going to do anything about it?
mm, mm.
Like, I just, and that to me is that I grew up in the time where we went and visited the sick and shut in. That was part of our like, you left church and you went and you picked up some groceries and you took it to Mama Dukes and them who didn't make it to church because they had surgery. You went and took them a meal.
Mm,
When
mm.
someone couldn't do something, you figured out a way to do it because you were supposed to do Matthew 21. We are the hands and feet in Jesus. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we should think a bit about when Joel Osteen's church, when there was that huge hurricane in Texas, and he wouldn't house anybody. I mean, maybe even to bring Black churches into this, Marvin Sapp's closed the doors, and now Marvin Winans making people give, over $2,000 to his church.
Honey, I live down the street from the Potter's house. Nothing. And I
Yeah.
promise you on
Yeah.
Sunday, that parking lot will be full of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to, be part of the Assemblies of God church, and I'll never forget when I went to Berkeley, actually, I asked my church, like, "Do you have any scholarships? I'd love to request like $5,000 for like books or housing or something." He had just announced like, "We're putting in $100,000 TV systems to a whole new." That church was a mega church, thousands of. And then he was like, "We don't have the money to participate in people's education scholarship." Why don't you have any money to invest in your congregants, but you have money to invest in the infrastructure? And I
Because
think
if I make you smarter, you're not gonna give me your money.
because guess what? I did leave that church after getting a college degree, so absolutely. They were like, "You're gonna go to Berkeley and fall into sin," and now I'm a raging lesbian pastor, so that happened.
It tracks. Listen, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. Listen, I made this joke the other day of like, Ciarra went to Harvard to be more of a pastor and left like still a pastor, but in a completely different way.
Yes, oh, yeah.
Because you know you're my pastor. Like you don't know that, but you are.
Well, I appreciate that for him. Berkeley and Harvard radicalized me, so I'm not your mama's pastor, but that's alright. But I think, overall, like, churches are I think what we're seeing more and more is they are institutions, just like any other institution, like Meta, like Facebook. Like, I think right now, many churches are acting like for-profit institutions, and I think we have to also be critical of them as such, while getting government tax breaks, while getting tax breaks their own congregants are not getting, that would help their well-being. And so I think it's also important to realize, like, the things that you're saying you need to pull yourselves up from your bootstrap and do and just handle with an American society. Churches are exempt from a lot of that financial pressure that your congregants are under, that their families are under. And so you're telling your congregants to have more faith, and that if they can't put food on the table, it's because they're not trusting God, while benefiting from systems that alleviate your financial stressors as pastors, as leaders. And so there's a lot of injustice happening. I do want to name, I think the city of San Francisco just figured out a private partnership as a way to extend SNAP benefits for those in the city of San Francisco. And they did say some of those partnerships are faith based. And as Cass mentioned, my church is doing a mutual aid drive. And so there are churches, of course, that have that eye to justice. But I do think the normative hegemonic practice we are seeing right now is churches extracting from their communities and not giving back to them. And then on the larger level around policy, of course, we're seeing Christian nationalist theologies come into our policy practices. And this is taking away SNAP benefits. We could even do a whole episode on elders and Social Security right now. We are going to have an elder care crisis
We're
very
already in it. We're already in it. It is an obscene amount of money for anybody who is elderly and needs help.
right
Like
now. I just wanna say,
obscene.
I know I'm cutting you off, but I just wanna say right now my grandfather's in a home, and I would say average. As a family, we have not been happy with his care. We've had to put Ring cameras in his room to make sure he's getting treated right. We have to go see him all the time. He's has dementia. He's becoming nonverbal. It's very scary to not know how your elder is being treated, and it's 10,000 a month. Okay, and this is coming from his military pension. He's 94. That could run out anytime. What does my family do? 10,000 a month is insane. That's insane. You know what I'm saying? That's just we're a middle class Black family. What is happening for folks? I can't imagine.
They die.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or people are not able to work because they have to take care of somebody full time. They're
Yeah.
not able to go back to school. It's all those things. So while you were talking, I looked up what states are extending SNAP benefits. Several states are extending SNAP benefits to cover the pause caused by this is of course from Google, which is Alphabet, whatever. The pause caused by federal government shutdown, with some using their own funds for direct aid and others funding food banks. States with direct aid include Connecticut, Louisiana, Virginia, Vermont, while others like Massachusetts, South Carolina, and Hawaii are funding food banks and relief. So, states providing direct aid as of today, Friday, October 31st, Connecticut, Louisiana, Virginia, Vermont. States providing food bank or other aid, Massachusetts, South Carolina, Hawaii, Minnesota, New York, Nevada, Guam, because we forget about that. This also impacts territories. So Guam, Puerto Rico, right? The Virgin Islands, states that have paused November SNAP benefits, Alabama, North Carolina, Texas. So
Wow.
now we're going to use,
You should put this in the episode notes.
I will
Yeah, this
cross
folks.
reference with states that elected Trump. A number of states that are extending SNAP benefits are in legal battles to ensure SNAP benefits continue, with 25 states suing the administration over potential suspension, including states that voted for Trump, such as Kentucky, Kansas, and Pennsylvania. Separately, a few states like Virginia are creating their own programs to supplement or replace federal benefits due to potential government shutdown that could impact SNAP. This is the thing that I also think is crazy is we as taxpayers, and I think this is something that's important to note, we as taxpayers already pay into these benefits, and there is an excess for cases like this, right? In 2019, we had a very similar thing with the shutdown, and the administration decided to extend SNAP benefits so people could eat. And
Yeah,
now we're at a point where going back to the we always got to find a who is responsible, and it's never the people actually in control. The Republicans are over here saying, well, the Democrats won't come to the table. Meanwhile, they all are at home.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
it's just it's never and I think the problem with Christianity in general is that there's typically a lack of responsibility and accountability for your own behavior and actions. And that extends into like your personal actions, but also all the way out into policy action. And that's literally what we're witnessing right now. And it's maddening. It's
Absolutely.
maddening. We have supercomputers in our pockets, but people are not going to eat for the next.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's sick, and I think, like actually, I have more thoughts, but, y'all, I have to hop because I got a one-on-one with my manager. I forgot.
Listen, and this is why we talk about this because we still have to function and
Yes.
work.
Yes, absolutely, while under all the systemic duress, and I think we should do a part 2 on, 2020 and policy, but as we think about all this, the theologies that divide us, these ideas of individual ascension to God, these idea that America is a meritocracy and it's our job to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, or even these ideas that it's our job to be two-issue voters and then trust that God will be the great equalizer versus, like you said, being the hands and feet of Jesus, showing up and being Jesus in action. I'm curious, what does sacred descent look like for you as we think about mutual aid, community care in this moment, and breaking free of ideologies that divide us?
So, first of all, sacred descent for me looks like recognizing my privilege. These are not things that are going to impact me. I just ordered my groceries for the weekend and I will be able to eat. I just ate a salad for lunch. Like I will not my child will not be impacted by the lack of school lunch program like and subsidies there. So, recognizing that even though I sit in a place of significant economic privilege compared to some, I'm not as rich as most, but compared to some, I have to still recognize not only that privilege, but recognize the things I can do. So donating a few dollars here and there, going and handing out things for at the coffee shop that's down the street, like thinking of those kinds of things while also recognizing my privilege because there's somebody who may never listen to this, but is going to be impacted because of the decisions that I make. And if I don't pay attention to that, then I'm no better than the people who are making the policies.
I love that. I think that, whenever I talk to organizations, I always show the wheel of power and privilege, and I like it because it shows, like, marginalization and power as, like, a gradient, and you can see where in different identities you sit. Maybe it's something we can even drop in the show notes, but I like that wheel because it reminds me like, yeah, like, if I look at the wheel, I can see I have areas of marginalization, my Blackness and queerness and womanhood, but I also have so many areas of privilege where I can help. My education, as you mentioned, income, similar to you, I won't go hungry this week because of losing SNAP benefits, so what local communities can I donate to? I'm gonna donate to my church's mutual aid this week. Something I even wanted to do, but I think it can get dicey is, like, have a mutual aid link and then give it out to my community, but I've actually wanted to wait to talk to, like, a lawyer about what that looks like because I've seen creators try it and then it breaks trust with their audience because it's
Why don't
hard.
we do it in the Patreon? It's a closed community.
It is. Let's talk about it because I think it would be nice to point people to each other, but I've also seen creators, like, who were trying to do good, but then people feel suspicious of them because they're doling out the you're acting as a nonprofit, essentially, if you do that, so I wanna talk through how we do it, but I just been thinking about even in my community, like, can I host a dinner this week for friends or a potluck and make sure my like, can do I need to send a blast to my friends and say, "Is anyone hungry this week?" And I know that could be a hard question, but what can I do? I think like, remembering that we are, as we talked about, the hands and feet of God, and if we have it right now, if you can give it forward to either a trusted organization or you can be that person to host a dinner or host a space, be that person. One of my favorite quotes comes from the previous Surgeon General called named Vivek Murthy, and he always says, like, "We are the medicine each other need. We are doctors. We are the healers of our communities." So, how are you the doctor or healer this week? And if you need support, how can you be brave and lean on your community to ask for it? Because I know that that's hard too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I'm glad we did this episode. We were had a whole nother plan, but it was on our heart and our head to do that. So we just want everyone to know that we are right there with you. We are angry and mad and frustrated and sad, but also active and engaged and figuring it out as we go along.
Yes. Thanks, Cass. Love being right there with you, buddy. Love our audience, and we'll see you all.
All right, friend. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Love
Bye.
y'all. Bye.